We acknowledge the first Australians as the traditional custodians of the continent, whose culture is the oldest living culture in human history. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and we respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. They share the memories, traditions and hopes of the traditional ancestors with the new generations today and in the future. We would also like to thank them for looking after this land for thousands of years.
Hi everybody and welcome to our Threatened Species Day Poem Forest workshops for secondary students. We are so glad that you're here. My name is Lauren Reeves and I am the Poem Forest producer at Red Room Poetry, and I would like to start by acknowledging that I'm zooming in from Gadigal country and pay my respects to Gadigal elders past, present and future, and to all First Nations people joining us today. We're so grateful that you're here. I grew up on unceded Dharawal country as someone with settler ancestry, but a strong connection to the natural world around me. And so it's been tough living in the city now and noticing the flowering seasons of species where land has been cleared and then replanted in small ways. So I want to acknowledge additionally all those First Nations people who are doing planting and gardening and restoration projects on Gadigal country.
Good afternoon, guys. My name's Dakota. Thanks, Lauren, for that beautiful acknowledgement. I'm a poet as part of Poem Forest, but I'm also a Bundjalung man, Bundjalung-Gumbayngirr man from the north coast of New South Wales. I'm proud to be from those Northern Rivers communities, although I spent most of my life on the far south coast on Yuin country. And I acknowledge now I'm kind of in between there on Dharawal country. Just an hour and a bit south of Sydney. I'm very proud to be living here in this country and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. The country here teaches me a lot, especially how the mountains kind of topple into the sea, revealing a very important relationship we have between water and earth. And I'd like to extend that acknowledgement out to everywhere that you guys are tuning in from, and acknowledge those First Nation students that may be joining us as well today. To get us started, I'm going to host a little poll for you guys. And this poll is about an acknowledgement of country. But before we go into that, I hope you can take a moment to kind of consider country, what it means to you, and maybe something specific about that country that you're on. Now it's time for a poll. So I want you guys to answer either A, B, C, or D, and this is going to be a speedy poll. So we'll give you a few more seconds. All right, so most of you, around 80%, chose D, all of the above, which there is no wrong answer in this. Although for an acknowledgement of country to be meaningful, we need to identify who we are, where we are, and using the specific language group terms, and always acknowledging elders, both past and present. Good job, guys.
Thanks, Dakota. Now we are here today to guide you through some writing activities to create your Poem Forest poem to submit to the prize and to celebrate Threatened Species Day, which is tomorrow. And to get us started, we're going to meet two really exciting speakers. First up, you're going to see a video from Red Room Poetry's Artistic Director, Tamron Bennett, to introduce the Poem Forest Prize. And then we are going live to the Australian Botanic Garden's Education and Engagement Lead, Melissa Slapp, who will show us where the poem forest is growing and teach us a bit more about what's happening at the gardens.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here as part of this Threatened Species Day workshop and for helping us to grow the poem forest. My name's Tamron Bennett. I'm the Artistic Director at Red Room Poetry, and I come from a long line of women named after plants and trees. So Poem Forest is a project really close to my heart, and I'm so grateful that you're all here to be a part of it. Before we begin, I'd like to give my respects to elders and custodians of Dharawal country, where I'm coming to you from today. I also give my respects to future leaders and all First Nations people joining us for the workshop today. Poem Forest grew from a seed of an idea and also listening really deeply to what a lot of young people are asking for as part of the School Strikes for Climate and all the valuable action that you're doing around climate protection and restoration and conservation. So we really wanted to make a project that was about valuing your voices and finding a way that our voices can make a difference when it comes to environmental action. So for every poem that you create today and across the project of Poem Forest, we teamed up with the Australian Botanic Gardens to help plant a native tree at Mount Annan. So the Australian Botanic Gardens team are going to tell you more about where the poem forest is growing in the garden and some of the threatened species that the poem forest is helping to protect in this really valuable conservation work. We're then going to listen to some inspiration and poetic activities with Dakota Feirer and the Red Room Poetry team to help you create your own poems. Once we receive your poems, we'll be able to publish those in our Poem Forest library and ensure that a native tree is planted in the poem forest for you and for future generations. Thank you so much again for being a part of the workshop today, for tuning in and for listening in this safe creative space. Thanks everyone, can't wait to read your poems soon.
Hi everyone, my name is Mel Slapp and today I am on Dharawal land. I am the Education and Engagement Lead at the Australian Botanic Garden Mount Annan in southwestern Sydney, New South Wales. I wonder if any of you have been there. It's part of the Australian Institute of Botanical Science and we're all about discovering, understanding and protecting plants. Today we've gathered to talk about threatened species. And while our thoughts may usually go to an animal species, there are many plants out there that need our thoughts and attention. Now, you might look at this next image and think it looks pretty boring, ugly, or maybe you don't have many feelings about it at all. I myself find it rather beautiful and calming, interesting, and a favourite place for a lunchtime walk when we were working on site at least. This is the Cumberland Plain woodland, and it's a type of woodland not found anywhere else in Australia. It's also under threat and listed as a critically endangered ecological community. The Cumberland Plain woodland once occurred across Western Sydney. It's the original native vegetation community of the clay soils of Western Sydney. It was looked after for thousands of years by First Nations people. And unfortunately, farming and urban development in the last 2 centuries have reduced these woodlands to only fragments. Less than 8% of its original extent remains. These fragmented and isolated pockets are under further threat from continuing urbanisation and invasive species. Another critically endangered community is the Western Sydney dry rainforest. It's also specific to the Western Sydney area, as the name implies, and it's restricted to hilly country with high elevation. Only growing in certain places and conditions doesn't bode well for an ecological community's survival, and it's also under threat from urbanisation, fragmentation, and weeds. The chief nemesis of these endangered communities is the African olive. an invasive species that originally found its way here in the 19th century, introduced by Europeans to grow hedges. It's got a long rap sheet of offending qualities that have helped it to become so successful in the takeover of native habitat. And on this next slide, you'll see how far it's been able to spread over a 30-year period. And each tree can live for up to 100 years. One tree can produce 25,000 olives in a single year, and they grow close together and create a canopy that blacks out anything and prevents it from living underneath. So that reduces native habitat and also the native animals that would usually live in that area. And this area here where you can see the spread over a 30-year period is the Mount Annan summit and part of where we are growing our palm forest. Now, we're lucky to have both critically endangered communities, the woodland and the rainforest, here at the Australian Botanic Garden. And at the Australian Plant Bank, another scientific component of our institute, our research has assisted in restoring the woodland and rainforest. We collect seed from almost every kind of plant so we can study them and store them in our seed vault. We propagate these special native seeds, plant the seedlings, and disperse seedlings into new areas. And we've also removed over 15 hectares of African olive, which you'll be able to see on the next slide. So you can see over a 2-year period how we've drastically reduced the amount of African olive taken over that area of Mount Annan. And that's what's allowing us to let palm forest come in and take centre stage. Now, all trees that are planted on site at the palm forest have been grown from seed in our very own nursery. We've grown a variety of plants that make up the diverse richness of the woodland and rainforest. And I want to share some photos with you now of our palm forest. I was very lucky to be able to visit there last week as it's within my 5-kilometre radius. So I took my exercise time, went outdoors and went to the Botanic Garden. Here you can see the hundreds of trees that have already been planted thanks to the hundreds and hundreds of palms that have been received through our palm forest competition. The white tubes around the seedlings are there to protect the plants while they're still so young and vulnerable. It protects them from the elements and from any foraging wildlife. Each seedling is planted with a metal tag that has an individual identification number on it. And using my memory and a bit of luck, I was able to find the seedling that I planted back in April of this year when we put the first seeds into the ground as part of the blessing ceremony to open the palm forest. And that's it there, and I'm happy to report it is growing well. Now, I would love to share a video of the palm forest with you. Okay, thank you for letting me introduce the Australian Botanic Garden and palm forest to you all today. But before I go, I'd like to take you through a short prompt to help get those creative juices flowing for today's workshop. Now, I would like you all to close your eyes and think of a place in nature that you like to go to. If you can't think of a specific place, try and imagine an area of the forest or woodlands that I've just been talking about. With your eyes still closed, take a big breath in and a slow breath out. What can you smell? What can you hear? Open your eyes now and imagine you're still there in your pocket of nature and look all around you. Look at all the features that make up the area of nature that you're in and tell me what stands out. Are there tall trees? Does it have a closed canopy or an open canopy? Can you see patches of blue sky? Are there other people perhaps enjoying the outdoors, or are you alone? Is your nature escape filled only with living things, or do non-living structures exist, like buildings or benches or more? And how does this place make you feel? Now I want you to imagine sharing with someone why this place is so important. What makes it special, and what can we do to protect it?
A few more minutes on that. Okay, guys. I hope I'm not interrupting some creative writing going on there. But we were going to throw another poll at you. And this poll asked that, have you chosen your special place in nature yet? Choosing either A or B. I'll give you a few seconds to answer this. Okay. Majority of you guys do have your place. And then even if you guys have yes to the power of 10. Now, the activity you just did, I had to do the very same thing. It was when Red Room Poetry approached me to be part of Poem Forest. Now, I wrote a poem about a particular tree, but a particular place that I held dearly in my memory and a place that I would visit. And the title of this poem is She Oak Shores. And I am going to read this to you now, but I want you to listen very attentively because there will be a question after the poem. All right. Somewhere in between beginning and end are shaded beds on sacred bends, made in layers of leaves resembling strands of ancient sacred ladies. Where sweet waters ebb and soft northern winds blow, faceless maidens bellow, my arms and Nawi follow, as their rhythms sing me home, upriver. Here, spirits creep amongst echoes, keep dry eyes on sweet water's tides, watch them rise before I fall. The saltier waters dissolve river borders for once, stay on course. In branches, old law women call, guiding my oars towards she-oak shores. Wrinkled bark mimics brown skin, carved marks reveal maps of kinship, names, voices, and stories all told in sacred song, and grandmothers of she-oak hold sacred bends strong. Singing recedes from the tips of her scale leaves down to a humming heartbeat in the earth beneath my feet. Grandest mother, I'm sorry we never had a chance to meet. I'm sorry your roots are far deeper than mine. For now I hope this bed of tears will suffice. So swallow me at the end of every apology and embrace my body in the roots of Casuarina. Melodic medicinal symphony of timeless ancestress, my name has been sung by her for eternity. She-oak, she knows what is done and yet to come. Earthen maternal sounds of a soft wind song sing me into the ground, upriver where my bones belong. Now, that poem was about an experience I had on a freshwater river on Yuin country. And it's quite a special bend of the river called Yarraji, which is a bit of a gathering place on the south coast. And on the border of the rivers are some really old she-oaks. Now I refer to the she-oak as this matriarchal figure or a female leader or the mother. And that's the feeling I had being in the presence of those trees, being nurtured and held for. And interestingly, the she-oaks or river she-oaks are part of our threatened species population. And I brought along something that should represent the interconnectedness of plants and animals and country. And this is the black cockatoo feather. And she-oaks actually present habitats for black cockatoos who are also threatened. So I want you guys throughout this session to think about what may be some threatened species that you can draw on.
I will let you guys know that there is a special threatened species prize within the overall Palm Forest Prize. So there's a range of different categories that you can win a prize in. One of those is the threatened species prize. So if you have got a threatened species in mind to write about today, then you can go into the running for that special threatened species prize. At the same time, we want you to think about how all of nature could be considered at risk and threatened. So if you don't have a specific threatened species in mind, we do want to encourage you to write about something that you have a personal connection to, so that you can write a poem that nobody else could have written about your piece, your special piece of nature.
Now I'm going to give you guys just 2 minutes to consider the question, why do we refer to it as Mother Nature? Now I want you to perhaps write or think about this idea of the maternal figure being associated with the earth.
And we do just want to let you folks know that we've heard that our slides might be a little bit blurry on your end. So when we bring the slides up, we'll try and run through some of the text on there until we can get them really clear on your end.
Now, one such answer to that question I just asked, Mother Nature is actually a method or a technique of personification. So, as you may have picked up throughout my poem, I use a lot of this personification. And we're going to give you guys a chance to do that for yourself. But some more examples from my poem was faceless maidens bellow, or singing recedes from the tips of her scale leaves down to her humming heartbeat in the earth beneath my feet. Now, thinking of your place that you thought of before, I want you to think of how can we describe this place that is non-human using human emotions or behaviors. Now, how would this place feel? How would this place feel about you being there? Is it happy to see you? Or maybe it's a sad kind of day. Now, I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on this idea of personification. And personify maybe a tree or an element, the wind, fire, water of this place using emotions.
everyone, we've just shared our slideshow, I think in the chat, so that you can follow along. We're up to slide 17. We're so sorry that it's showing up in a blurry way as we're projecting it, but hopefully you can access it now and follow along yourself. Give you another minute or so to finish up with personification.
Beautiful work, guys. I like to use personification because it's like we're giving country or the environment a voice. And a really important part to consider is this idea of concrete imagery. And we're encouraging you guys to avoid cliches or overused terms throughout poems. So an example of concrete imagery from my poem is wrinkled bark mimics brown skin, carved marks reveal maps of kinship. Now we want you to be specific about your place. Tree canopies full of night, like stained glass flowers, is an example of that specific imagery. Now, some cliches are ideas of the rumbling belly of the storm, or trees stood tall like giants. Try to avoid terms that aren't as unique, but try to hone in on small little details of your place. The pattern of the journey of an ant, or maybe the big eagle eye picture of your place. What does it look like from way up above? We're going to give you the same amount of time, a couple of minutes, to work through some concrete imagery. Okay, guys. Now that you've had a lot of time to sit with these writing techniques and imagery and that special place we've encouraged you to think about, we're going to give you 5 dedicated minutes for you to writing your poem that we hope you will submit to Poem Forest. Now, over the next 5 minutes, focus on those techniques, the themes in your place, and make sure to try and personify 1 or 2 things or the place altogether. We'll give you 5 minutes. But before that, we're going to ask you a quick poll. And that poll is, what makes a good poem? A, lots of rhyming. B, fancy words like exquisite. C, similes like the sun was shining bright as a diamond. Or D, a personal story with some carefully crafted poetic techniques and specific imagery. I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. Almost 100% of you guys said D, a personal story with some carefully crafted techniques and specific imagery. Now, we'd like you to bring that in to this next 5 minutes, using that personal story and carefully crafted techniques. Remember to be specific and give it the best shot you can. The slides again are in the chat, and it's up to slide 20 now.
Just a reminder, everyone, your poem can be up to 20 lines to enter into the Poem Forest Prize, but it doesn't have to be that long. You could write a haiku or a 10-line poem, but can't be any more than 20 lines. Everybody, we are going to give you a few more seconds to finish up the draft of your Poem Forest Nature poem. And if you're not quite finished yet, hopefully you'll have some time to finish up and keep editing outside of the workshop. So I'll just give you one more minute to finish up your last line. All right, congratulations. You've all just written the first draft of your Poem Forest Nature poem to submit to our prize. We're so excited to read them. And when you are ready, once you've done your final edits, hopefully your teachers will take you through submitting the prize into our digital entry form via the Red Room Poetry website. And we have a little video just to show you where you're going to go on the website once you get there to submit your prize. So if you head to redroompoetry.org and go to the featured project Poem Forest project page, and then you'll scroll down and you can read up on all the terms and conditions and prize categories on this project page. If you click on the entry form, that's where you're going to submit your poem to the prize. We're going to collect a little bit of information from you on this entry form: your name, school, postcode, whether you live in the Darwall country area, because there's a specific prize for that, some teacher or parent or guardian details, and then you'll select a category, which is an age category. And then you'll pop in your title and copy and paste your poem in. And then there's a checkbox for whether you've written about a threatened species and a reflection if you'd like to add that in. Click on the terms and conditions and submit your poem. So we hope that you've got some spare minutes after this workshop to go and submit your poem to the prize and go in the running for lots of cool prizes. Oh, we've just received a question about whether you can have more than one poem. Unfortunately, it's one poem per student. And we will be planting that tree for you with Mel at the Australian Botanic Gardens for that poem. It's really great that you all want lots and many trees to be planted for you, but one poem per student for this year. We are going to finish up with some Q&A. Lots of schools have sent through some really great questions for Dakota to answer. So we're going to run through a few of those. Thanks so much for sending them in. And to start, Dakota, why is it important that we're writing in conversation with the earth? Why are we writing about plants, and what motivates you to do so?
I guess the earth is already in conversation with us every day. And I speak on behalf of myself, and I wrote about a conversation I had with the earth, and chose the best way to represent that was through poetry, because poetry can be abstract, it can be like a story, and I think the earth talks to us through stories, and stories can be cycles. How do we know when fruit is ripe to eat? Or how do we know when to move to lower country when that temperature changes? How do we know when to go to bed and wake up? And I think it's important that we move from a place of disconnection and detachment from the natural law, the natural cycles, by engaging or re-engaging back with that conversation with the earth. And I know the more that I spend time in that place of conversation with the earth, the happier and more healthier I feel as a person. And that's because we come from the mother. We have to care for our own mother in real life. So it's the same deal with we've only got one mother, and yeah, it's time we all started that conversation again.
Oh, I love that answer. Thanks, Dakota. We have a question from Hurlston Agricultural High School, whose Year 8 students are here today. And that question ties in a little with what you've already said, which is, how do you find inspiration for your poetry? So I guess maybe how did you choose the she oak to write about in particular? And if you were going to write a new poem today, how would you find inspiration to write that?
I guess, I'm very conscious of, why we acknowledge country. It's because it's the place that sustains us. And whenever I write, I look outside and I say, what's there? Why is it important? And, country and that seasonal dynamic of country is what motivates me a lot of the time. For me, with the she oaks, it was more of a long time coming, kind of recording that real life experience and story, and in turn honoring that tree, because I come from a small country town where a lot of pastoralists and a lot of land clearing results in a species like the she oak being threatened, and then those cockatoos are threatened. And so I come from a place where those trees were cleared all the way up to the banks of that river, and I just was inspired by the age and the strength of them, actually, them root systems holding together those banks, and in turn presented a metaphor to me that it's those roots of the mother that nurture us and keep us strong. But it's a lot deeper than that, and I like to say that I only tell true stories or stories of truth, because I can't necessarily make up reality. I just record on my own reality and what I see around me. Yeah.
I love that you deliver that reality so beautifully through metaphor and other poetic techniques in your writing. I love that poem. We've had a question come through from the chat as well. Can your poem be threatened species and not plants? Yes, it can. I hope a lot of you wrote about animals or threatened species of animals, as well as plants, for sure. Definitely submit those poems. Now we had another question come in from Oxford Falls Grammar, and their Year 7 students are here, and they have asked, what is your favourite species of threatened animal?
Well, I brought the feather because that's important, but also I do want to acknowledge, our koalas that are endangered and threatened species, which is a really hard truth to hear, because coming from the south coast and knowing the impact of those bushfires, but even before that, the clearing of habitats, our own sort of systems and expansive practices result in these species in refuge and in asylum. And yeah, I'd say the cockatoo and the koala for me.
I might chime in with one too. I was reading about the regent honeyeater, which is a critically endangered species, a yellow and black bird, who've forgotten their love song to attract a mate because there's so few older birds to learn the song from. And so there's some work being done at the moment to teach some of the birds in captivity the song through science.
Wow.
So that they can go back out into nature and attract their mates with a love. I feel like that's a poem waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Love poem of the regent honeyeater.
Yeah, cool.
And there's another one from the same school, Oxford Falls Grammar Year 7 students. Are you just a poet, Dakota, or do you do another job too?
I do. I do a lot of other jobs. One job I do part-time. as an art educator at the Art Gallery in New South Wales, where we get to work with schools, kids coming in, and I put my poetry hat down for a bit and get to talk about art and a lot of Indigenous art and culture. But I'm also a teacher, so I teach at the University of Wollongong here locally, but also do a bit of research. Research on this idea of invasive natives. So I'm actually writing a poem for that project on the Illawarra flame tree, which is, I guess, ties into what that inspiration is for me being in the Illawarra, but seeing the decrease of flame trees that are held so iconic, and they're actually considered invasive natives because they disrupt infrastructure. The council says you can't support them. Yeah, so I do a lot of other jobs, but that doesn't mean I kind of steer away from the same work when we consider the environment and country and culture. I think I have one purpose, and the other jobs that I do to fulfill that purpose are just other jobs, other ways of doing that.
And maybe finally, from Wahroonga Adventist School, who have years 7, 8, 9, and 10 here today with us. Thank you so much for coming. And I might take this one on. The question is, what inspired Project Poem Forest? And we heard earlier from our artistic director, Tamron Bennett, who was inspired by a lifelong love of plants herself to create this project, but also that the project was inspired by listening to student activists, students from School Strikes for Climate and Young Voices taking action on climate change and how they're being listened to by the adults around them. And also, in my experience, from young poets who submitted to our prize last year, which was it was called Poetry Object. And it was about objects that are special to us, but so many young people wrote about the environment instead, which wasn't exactly an object, but we had to listen to those voices. You guys want to write about the nature around you. You want to write about the environment and climate change, and we want to listen to you and respond with projects that make you guys excited and engaged. So that was part of the inspiration for Poem Forest. Do we have time, do you think, to close with a poem, Dakota? Do you have anything else that you might like to read?
Yeah, if there's no other questions, maybe from the chat. If not, I can share it with you.
One quick one. Will the planted trees have a label on them saying which person wrote the poem? They will not. And a little bit about why that is that when we plant all the seedlings, some of them don't grow to their full capacity, and it's called die-off, and it's a very normal thing, but we didn't want to give you guys a tree that didn't make it. It's a huge area that they're populating out at the gardens. So we hope that you get to visit, and if you can't visit, we'll send lots of videos and photos as those seedlings grow. But no, we don't have the capacity to put your name on every one of them. And can you write about the ocean? Yes, of course you can. What an important part of nature to write
Please
about.
do.
Yes. Over to you for a final piece, Dakota.
Cool. Yeah, all right. Well, I'll read a little bit. Maybe this one's a bit long. We've only got a little bit left, but this poem's called There's Medicine in the Ashes, and it's a response to the bushfire instance over the last summer. They're quite devastating impact, but the healing that goes on after that. So I'll go for it now. The institution of man once moved gently, like footprints in the sand. Once recognized, the land holds us in her hands. Instead, man now dismembers rivers, topsoil, and himself. Tomorrow claims our attention. So came summer's intention. Next time we light a fire, we'll let Mother guide us. We'll fold old ideological fabric, kept safe from Burai's eyes, signing its edges with our fingertips. Dear fire, we were wrong. May we move through burning country, bounding together tombs, singing rain and healing in hopes that one day they become wounds, unearthing old spirits in shades of the cockatoo, marked in the beginning by fire, known to bring the rain, dressed in scars and sacred colours, carrying water and flame. If rains and names be yet now absent, let our tears water the soil. Let the memory of loved ones gild new leaves and seeds. Let shaky hands turn the ashes of black soil and burnt timber, so handfuls of life's remnants meet again with fiery red heat. May we recall the dreaming, cocooning the wattle seed. May it flower yellow in the winter, and so observe your bare hands amongst the earth. You may see there's medicine in the ashes. Thank you so much for your listening and participation in writing today, guys.
Thanks so much for being here. We can't wait to read your poems.
Thank you.
Have a great day.